For those listening for the first time, I have my first sponsor, and I could not think of a better one than mempool.space, a fantastic Bitcoin block explorer. We are still using Wiz's mempool here, but like most things in my life, I'm moving towards free and open source software, and you get that with this Bitcoin block explorer. So you do not need to trust Wiz's mempool, i.e. mempool.space. You can easily host it yourself. More to come on this front at the park in 2023. But mempool is becoming much more than your traditional block explorer. It is becoming a multi-layer explorer from layer 0 mempool, layer 1 the Bitcoin blockchain, layer 2 plus like Lightning, Liquid, and more. And that more part is for those interested in Bitcoin mining. They have a robust mining dashboard, which I check every day. So give it a shot yourself at mempool.space. My second show supporter, and it is Blockstream Jade. Blockstream Jade is an open source hardware wallet for the cold storage of Bitcoin and Bitcoin layer 2 assets on Liquid, such as stablecoins and security tokens. I personally only use my Blockstream Jade for storing Bitcoin, but that is me. Blockstream Jade houses a camera and full color display, allowing for fully air-gapped Bitcoin transactions. You can scan and display QR codes directly on the device to sign transactions and verify addresses with ease and peace of mind. You can manage your assets from mobile or desktop with Jade-compatible wallets such as Blockstream Green, Blue Wallet, Electrum, and my personal choice and favorite, Sparrow. Go to blockstream.com/Jade, Jade, to learn more and also buy one if you're so inclined.
So we had one customer roll in, thought they had great operations, turned Foreman on. We didn't have any automation on yet. Just turn it on, let you see what you got. Here's all your miners on the network. Here's what's missing hash boards. All this turned on automation, and we made them about 80 grand more that month. And their Foreman bill is maybe 2K. So they're making 80 grand that month by just using Foreman.
Welcome to the Builders in Bitcoin podcast, a podcast about the people who bring Bitcoin to life. I'm your host, Rod, and I go by the handle BitKite on Twitter. My guest this week is Dan Lawrence, co-founder and CEO of Foreman Mining, a company best known for their mining management platform that offers unprecedented control and insight over your Bitcoin miners. In this episode, we discuss and dig into the humble origins of OBM, aka Foreman, why mining operations need Foreman, how Foreman helps operators meet rigorous curtailment requirements, and a whole lot more. I really enjoyed my conversation with Dan, and I hope you will too. So let's just jump right in. Dan Lawrence, welcome back to Nashville, Tennessee. How the heck are you?
I'm good, Rod. Thanks for having me. This is my second time here to see you.
It is your first time. I think it was December of 21 when we hosted our first Bitcoin mining meetup. And I'm like, Dan, I don't even think you even spoke on the panel. I think, yeah, right? You took a flyer on me and said, yeah, I'll come up from where you're based in Maryland. And next thing you know, there was like 250 people hanging from the rafters. And
it was incredible.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I think Econo, Diverter, we had Kevin Zhang from Foundry. We had
Grid. Harry was there.
Harry Sudak from Grid was there. It was, Tom Masiaro, who was working at Cathedra at the time, now has started Standard Bitcoin.
Max was there, Talk Energy.
Yeah, Max Gagliardi was there. Marty and Matt Odell were there.
Some midstream guys. It was a good event.
Dude, that was so much fun. And now we're here back in Nashville. We got an amazing meetup tomorrow night. I think we have over 170. Well, that was also a different time. We should go and fact check this, Tom, by the way. What was the price of Bitcoin in December of 21? Which was probably like 50, 60,000. So everyone's like irrational exuberance was super high.
Yeah, I remember going to this one. I was thinking maybe I need to get the flight a little earlier this time, save a little cost. So yeah, price of Bitcoin probably not too great right now, but it was a good time. It was incredible.
But I will say there's when you're focused on Bitcoin, the capital be the monetary network, and Bitcoin, lowercase b, the asset. And at least this is what's worked for me and Matt here at Bitcoin Park. Just staying focused on the principles, you attract or you retain the folks that are really curious about Bitcoin, and you're growing that quality base. So even in a bear market like where we are in right now, squarely in, tomorrow night we have over 170 plus people that have RSVP'd just for our meetup. We got 2 great panels. I think one of them is called to host or not to host. That is a question. And then another one that's looking out to 2023. And so yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, bear markets are fun to me. This is when you see the real players come out. Like we go to conferences all the time. We just went to the mining summit, and the Texas Blockchain Summit mining conference. The conference attendance, you can feel that it tracks with the bear market, but everybody that's walking around
Yeah.
is just a real player. Like if you're building during a bear market, you're setting yourself up for success, and it's just to be all in during a bear market. It's incredible. It's fun.
Shout out to NVK. I picked him up from the airport today, and legit, he said the same thing. It is so much fun to build in the bear. You find out, who your friends are and the folks that you really want to do business with. And then in the bull market, you see all these new players, and you just got to do your don't trust, verify a little bit harder in the bull.
Yeah.
Well, thinking of some past lives, if anyone Google searches your LinkedIn profile, which is pretty prestigious, as the founder and CEO of, by the way, founder and CEO of OBM.
OBM, yeah, that one trips people up a good bit.
Yeah, you can give a shout out to your email address, but your email address is not maybe it is at Foreman, but it's at OBM.
At OBM.mn. That's another story too. The OBM's one story, the .mn's another story.
We got some time. Please go ahead.
So OBM, so me and my co-founder, Jake, we started Bitcoin mining probably 2016. We started in Westminster, Maryland, which is about an hour north of Baltimore, which is where we're both out of. We deviated a little bit. We started off into S9s, Bitcoin staying true, got into, some Litecoin and strayed from the path. But we were running this mine in a detached garage at my dad's house at the time. And it's this big metal structure, metal pole barn with metal walls. We had no internet in there, so we ran it over a cell phone modem. And we had to do so much to try to get reception so we could get internet in the garage. We bought this fancy modem, this fancy router. We got to this point where we had antennas connecting from the router out to the side of the building. And these antennas stuck on the side, they were all magnetic, stuck to the side of this metal garage. And we could never get above, no matter what we did, we never got better service than 1 bar. So our company name was 1 Bar Mining, because no matter what we did, no matter how much capital we put into it, no matter how fancy we got, we never got higher than 1 bar of service. So that was where OBM started. MN is another story too. So we started 2016, OBM was started. We wanted, we're a SaaS software, kind of sexy startup. We got to do the .io. We couldn't get .ios because .ios they're too hot. So we were like, well, let's shake it up. Let's do something really different here. Let's do .mn for mining. This will be the start of it all. Everybody's going to latch onto this. Everybody's going to want .mns. And now, whenever we get onto a sales call, .mn did not take off, by the way. Now, everybody wonders, one of the first questions we get on a sales call is, are you guys from Mongolia or from Minnesota? Or where are you guys from? No. And then we have to tell the story. So OBM, 1 Bar Mining, MN, mining. We're not Mongolian. We're not from Minnesota.
Yeah.
We're from Baltimore.
Man, and I think I met you at a conference. And by the way, speaking of conferences, I couldn't agree more on that front. And I love I love these stories about how little things like this are created. So can we back up a little bit though?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Can I ask the DoD question?
Yeah. Let's get into it. Sure.
How the heck did you end up working for the United States Department of Defense?
That's an interesting question there. So I was right out of high school. I started going to college. I didn't have any scholarships, no financial aid. And then I was sitting there my freshman year, staying on campus, parents paying tuition, housing. And I got this email at UMBC, which is where I went. And it said, hey, we're looking for students who might be interested in enrolling this program. It would offer a full scholarship,
Oh, cool.
pay for housing, pay for a laptop, pay for all your tuition, books, everything, fully paid. And the nice thing is you also got paid year round to go to school. So I had a salary year round too. So my parents were like, I was like, hey, mom, dad, I got this email. They were like, well, why are you telling us about it? Let's go fill it out right now. We're filling it out right now. And I was like, it was a waste of time, but yeah, let's fill it out. Go through the process, and then eventually I ended up with an internship there. They have this obligation when you work there, when they pay for school for a certain amount of time, you have to give equal time back. So I went there for my undergrad. I was at UMBC for my undergrad. I went to Hopkins for my master's, 6 years. 6 years you got to give back. So I was there for a chunk of time. Looking back, definitely learned a lot. Made me a great software developer. I loved writing software. Learned a lot, and now here I am, a massive Bitcoiner. So learned a lot.
So which group were you in at so the Department of Defense is explain that to me, how that structure works.
Department of Defense kind of like umbrella, I guess we'll say. So there's a whole bunch of 3-letter agencies, and then the DoD kind of blankets a good chunk of
That's
it.
cool.
So I worked at the DoD.
I'll leave it there for now.
Yeah.
So, by the way, you and Jake were mining Bitcoin in 2016, but how did you even get into Bitcoin?
How did we get into Bitcoin? It's probably tail end of 2016. We were drunk in Fed Hill in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I actually have a video of that night when Jake was very smashed and he did this Arnold Schwarzenegger impression and got into a fight with a tree. I'll show you the video after this podcast. And we just had this, it was right when Bitcoin, I feel like it went from triple digits to maybe it was just touching 1,000. And he was like, it was almost like this moment when we were both like, hey, we should get into Bitcoin. And we were like, let's do it. But what we fell in love with, we didn't know much about Bitcoin for a very long time. When I say very long time, I mean maybe a year or so. We got deep into it because we love building software, and it gave us a project.
Yeah.
He and I worked together for a very long time. We've worked together actually for 2 years, but we were just a great software team. I implemented all the stuff. He fixed all the stuff. It was this, he probably hated me. I don't know why he still talks to me. I just was, 100 miles an hour in one direction, and then he's just cleaning up my mess. But we fell in love with the fact that, we could buy this little silver box, plug it in, put it on the internet, start making some magical Bitcoin. But then how are we going to monitor this thing? How are we going to manage this thing an hour away in Westminster? So then it gave us a project. And then we kind of like orange pilled ourselves once we started building this project and figuring out how to keep this thing online 24/7. What the hell is this thing even doing? Oh, wow. And then it takes you 1 or 2, bad steps with a bank. And then you're like, I'm in. And that was my story, at least how I got into it. So yeah, it gave us a project and something cool to play with, and we fell in love with it.
Man, and how long's Foreman been a business now?
So OBM started in 2016. 2017 was probably when we officially kind of incorporated their OBM. It got restructured in 2020, 2021. There's a holding company and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But we started building Foreman in 2017, and that was when the .mn was probably born. And I have pictures of when we first started writing it, and I'm embarrassed to show them, but we had a couple users and people were poking around, and it was fun. It was thrilling.
What was the feeling of that first year? Because I assume it was like a landing page and they would just sign up and just use your software, or were you going hand to hand?
It was free. It was totally
Yeah.
free. People could sign up for it. We pumped it on Reddit a little bit.
Okay.
You can find some of those early posts, and we built it 100% for ourselves, really.
Yep.
And then, how are we going to log into this thing? I guess we need some logins. Hey, what if we open it up for other people? And then people started to sign up, but we deviated pretty bad off the start. We couldn't quite find our rhythm. It felt thrilling to have somebody sign up and use it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, though, that the people that were using it back then were nothing like the customers that we have today.
How so?
Well, we built it for ourselves. We were S9s, L3s, ASICs
Mm-hmm.
when we were doing our hobby mining. got into GPUs. And GPUs are kind of a pain to mine with. They're very fragile, very fickle. You tune one card a certain way, you got to tune another card a different way. And we got into the GPU side, so we started committing a lot of dev towards the GPU side. And the GPU space, we realized in probably 2018 the amount of attention that we have to put towards these two GPU rigs is 99% of our time.
Mm-hmm.
And we have, 10 or 12 ASICs. I don't even have to look at them. There is no way this industry is going to hyperscale in the GPU side. So we said, and back then all of our users were GPU miners mostly. So we said, there's no way. Let's pivot. Let's just focus on ASICs.
Bold.
Yeah, we pivoted, focused on ASICs. 2019 was when we built out a ton of our ASIC stuff. And now I would not even, if anybody came to us and said, hey, I have some GPUs, can Foreman monitor those? Yeah, we can, but you're looking at the wrong spot. We're ASIC management at this point.
So, dumb question, but with Ethereum moving to proof of stake, what other real proof of work miners or what other blockchains are being mined?
With GPUs?
No, with ASICs other than Bitcoin.
So we're ASIC focused. We consider ourselves to be a Bitcoin company because, that's where Bitcoin is the largest mining capacity.
Sure.
And it's got the ability to change the world. Our platform, in its purest form, though, is ASIC management.
Mm-hmm.
So that means 99.99999% of our business is Bitcoin miners.
Mm-hmm.
But people have gold shells and other stuff mining Cadena and I don't even know what all those other coins that they're mining.
So
with.
that's why you say cryptocurrency miner on the
That's
side.
why we say it, yeah. So it's really more ASIC management.
Yeah.
But when you get into a lot of the specifics like
Mm-hmm.
financial reporting, making sure that you're being paid fairly by the pool that you're mining to, we can help with all that kind of reconciliation to make sure that the payouts are all lining up and everything. We've hyper-focused on Bitcoin specifically because the people that are asking those questions are the people that are mining at scale, which have the most complicated books, which means that they need assistance helping reconcile the books. So yes, we're ASIC management, but if you look at where are we feature rich the most, it's Bitcoin ASICs.
I love that. So who is your now ideal customer?
So we were very B2C, business to consumer back
Yep.
in the day, because we were just small scale hobby consumers. We our ideal customer now, we took more of the few elephants, not 10,000 rabbits approach. So if you're a small scale hobby miner, you're welcome to use Foreman. I think it adds a lot of value to an operation. It's actually free up to 25 ASICs. If you actually contact us, we'll bump it up as much as you need. If you're kind of small scale, it's good to kind of get the word out.
Yeah.
Plus we want to support the ecosystem, get people, keep the hashing going. But we're hyper focused more on the people running at scale that have to solve some kind of more complicated problems. The larger your electrical load,
Mm-hmm.
the more programs you have to participate in, the more complex the operation is. So some people that have maybe, 1 to 20 ASICs might look at Foreman and say, this thing's heavyweight. But it's because we're building it for somebody that maybe has 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 ASICs.
Mm-hmm.
So you might come in there and say, I don't need 90% of these features, but somebody out there does. So we're generally more targeted towards large scale mines at the moment, but we have a wide array of consumers at this point. Our Discord's flooded with people with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ASICs, and I think that they probably end up getting the most attention because that's how we still identify as ourselves.
Yeah.
We're hobby miners.
Yeah. One bar mining. I love that.
One bar mining.
So the type of so I love the I would call from my past life the enterprise approach rather than the SMB or the hand-to-hand B2C approach. What are the just out of curiosity, what are the type of deals that you're looking to structure with somebody, and why? Okay, so let me back up. Instead of the type of deals, why does someone need to use Foreman, and more specifically, what is the problem that you're solving for these mining operators?
Yeah, good question. So initially when we started with Foreman, it was the problem we were trying to solve was, imagine you have a cell phone and how much time it takes you to maybe set up your cell phone when you get it right out of the box. What's it take you, 10 minutes or 15 minutes maybe to get all your stuff entered in and get your cell phone configured? Bitcoin mining at scale is like configuring 30, 40, 50,000 cell phones. So you need to have a way to streamline how quickly you can onboard, because as soon as you buy that miner, you're losing money until you get it plugged in. And you need to get it
Yeah.
plugged in and configured right away. So Foreman initially, out of the box, our kind of IOC, our initial capability, was give you the ability to tell you when the miners are online, reboot them if they're offline, and try to streamline how you onboard. So very, very light, mostly monitoring, a little bit of configuration. That was how we started. The problems that we're solving now, though, are not necessarily so when you run at scale, trying to find a miner that's offline, imagine you have 50,000 miners. It's like a needle in a haystack problem. So we give you a lot of visualizations to show people where miners are located. So that cuts operator time down. So now they have GPS coordinates right to where the miner is, rack, container, rack, row, index. They know exactly what one to take off. Without that, your needle in the haystack problem. The where we're hyper focused now is kind of grid instability. So rewind a year. I was at the mining conference in Austin, and somebody came up to me asking me about, hey, can you guys do curtailment?
So for the audience, what's curtailment?
So curtailment is basically the ability to ramp a facility down, ramp your electrical consumption down or up, depending on a signal. So you're curtailing. You might curtail if maybe you're at a wind farm and the wind production's low. You got to curtail to reduce your consumption because maybe wind production's low. Therefore, you can't be consuming a lot if you're trying to match the wind production. Or you could be like a grid connected site and maybe you're participating in demand response, which would be grid is stressed. The grid functions, it's all supply demand. The supply of electricity has to match the demand. You really can't have excess. You really can't have a deficit either. If you have too much, it gets sunk to the ground or the grid becomes unstable, frequency runs out, grid can shut down. The grid will shut down if you have too much or too little. So demand response is that balancing act saying, hey, there's, it's a cold day, there's a big freeze coming up, everybody's going to have heat running, some of the renewables are going to dry up. We need to reduce our consumption so there's more supply for where else it has to go for consumers. Otherwise, we have rolling blackouts. So curtailment has been a big part of what we've been building at Foreman lately. So being able to participate in those events to help balance the grid. And it's very economical to participate in that too. And if you asked me a year ago, what was curtailment? What was Foreman going to be doing a year from now? I would have never thought that we'd be so deep into curtailment. Now, I don't think I can go probably 10 minutes on any sales call without talking about demand response or curtailment. That's the big question everybody comes through the door with.
And so how does your software solve that?
So Foreman has this feature called power control. Very simple to define there. It controls the power at the site.
Yeah.
So a large scale customer, if you are, say, in PJM, in the Pennsylvania kind of area, ISO, if you're connected to that grid, you would say, hey, I've got 100 megawatts or 50 megawatts of electrical consumption. I want to offer that up as an insurance policy to the grid. So now they have this commitment for 50 megawatts of electrical capacity. It's kind of like a generator. So now it's always there, always consuming. They have 50 megs, they give it to you for 50 megs. So it's perfect balance and supply, perfect demand and supply. Then they pay you year round, all year, to be that insurance policy. So you're paid continuously, even if you're never getting asked to turn off. You are paid year round. That's the insurance to the grid. They want you there. They want you consuming. So then if there is a weather event or a generation goes down or wind stops or, gas dries up, whatever happens, and they're at a deficit, they can ask you, their insurance, hey, time to turn off. And then now your 50 megs that you had goes out to everybody else. So that's the whole demand response side. So there's a demand on the grid. And as a consumer, you are an insurance policy to the grid. So when demand hits, you respond, You give your consumption back to the grid and they can use it how they need it. We automate that. So
Wow.
so if somebody, so in like PJM, that's all handled through CSPs, curtailment service providers. You go to them. They work with you to say, how much capacity do you have? How much curtailment can you do? Oh, you've got 50 megs. We'll enroll you for 50 megs of curtailment into PJM. So then when those events happen, they get the signal. They dispatch it. It comes directly to Foreman, and then we automatically ramp the site down, bring 50 megs off, less than a minute. Event runs out. When the event ends, less than a minute, we bring you back online.
Damn. And the amount of money not only saved, but then, yeah, I mean, I would say saved and potentially even earned in these scenarios. How can you quantify or can you calculate that in your guys' dashboard? Or is this something that's more happening offline with like a data analyst on the client side?
It's very tricky. That's kind of what the specialty of a CSP is doing.
What's a CSP?
A curtailment service provider.
Okay.
So as a customer, as a consumer of electricity, I can't go right to the ISO and say, hey, Mr. or Ms. ISO, I'd love to participate in demand response.
And ISO is?
Independent system operator.
Okay.
Check me on that. So you don't go and say, I'd like to participate. You go through somebody else.
Yeah, independent system operator.
Yeah, lucked out. So you don't go right to the ISO because then they're going to get slammed with all these requests to participate in demand response. So then they have like a middleman called a CSP, a curtailment service provider. And you, as a consumer, go to your CSP. And the CSP kind of brokers the conversation between you and the ISO. And the CSP also figures out what programs you as a customer can optimally participate in. So without Foreman, you might be able to participate in day ahead programs. So that means that like tomorrow at a certain event, you're going to come down. So like 24 hours in advance. So that's what you're doing without kind of software automation, without Foreman in the equation. So you can do very big lead time demand response participation. Or if you want to get into the really, really aggressive stuff, you can do ancillary services. And with those, the response times are much quicker. So no more day ahead notices. Day ahead, I can send somebody out and I can say, hey, be at site tomorrow at 2:30 and flip some breakers. We're coming down by 3. Ancillary services, the response time's 10 minutes in ERCOT in Texas. Some of it's 5 minutes. For primary frequency response in ERCOT, it's like 16 seconds. You can't dispatch people and have them throw breakers in 10 minutes. You can't do it in 5. You can't do it in 16 seconds. So that's the importance of software to grid stability and what we do at Foreman. We give you a way to automate those day ahead notices. Those are the easy ones. But when you get into how do we make the most with the load that we've got as an insurance policy on the grid,
Wow.
You want to get into those 10, 5, 1 minute response programs because those are the ones that pay the most. And if you're in PJM, Mitch was just doing a deep dive in some of this into ERCOT and everything. I think at the time we were looking at like about $130,000 per megawatt a year. So if you have 10 megs, it's 1.3 million. If you have 20 megs, it's 2.6. So the more capacity you have and the more you enroll into demand response, you can make millions off of it. So you want to be participating. If you're a large scale miner, you're participating in demand response, or else you're leaving a lot of money on the table.
That's freaking awesome. Now getting on the business side, how do you guys structure deals? Is it are you guys taking any performance, or is this more of you mentioned SaaS, so is this a subscription model? I'm always very curious about, especially on the enterprise side, where software, like when you have a smaller subset of clients, but yet make a huge impact to their bottom line, where it becomes a necessity to use something like you guys. How do you guys price in order to be fair for both sides?
So that's one thing that we've learned a lot about. We started off very, very traditional, cost per miner per month, and that's actually where we are till this day. But that process, we've learned a lot. Traditionally, when we first started out with Foreman in 2018 was maybe when we opened it up for people to use it. It was free. Then we said, let's cover costs. Let's go to 10 cents per miner per month. Then we said, well, this is covering costs, but I don't want to have to turn the lights off when I go home. I'd like to just leave the lights on if we can. So then we said to 60 cents. That's where we are now. But what we've learned since we've started solving all these grid problems is that we need to be hyper aligned with our customers. because they can get removed from these programs if they don't perform effectively. So if you're participating, if you're that insurance policy and you're getting paid year round and you don't perform once, what kind of insurance, who are you insuring? You're not covering anybody. So we are now pivoting our pricing. We will still keep the traditional cost per miner per month, and that has volume-based discounts and everything. More you add, cheaper it gets, all that stuff. But because it's such a we have to be so involved in their daily ops. We have to know how their site's going to perform. We have to let them know, hey, you're 50% down. If you get enacted and they ask for the full load and you can't provide it, you're at risk. So we have to be very involved with their day-to-day operations. So now we're pivoting traditionally it was free for curtailment just to kind of see, needs, see, kind of value it adds if people are interested in it. Everybody's interested in it. So that's going to actually kind of fork off. So we will still have cost per miner per month to have the miners in the platform, something like a cost per megawatt hour that we're managing. So now when they're up and they're mining, we are kind of being compensated also for helping them manage that load. So the amount of load that they have generally aligns with how much time we will have to spend. So they will both kind of be charged separately.
Yeah. Speaking as a miner now, I have a number of deployments personally. I will say it depends on the scale and the true need. And you got to feel the pain of not using software like yours in order to use software like yours, in my opinion, because every single extra cent to the cost line item for a miner means a lot, right? Especially in these bear markets, especially when they have fixed contracts on, you mentioned the ice, like the energy contracts that they gotta pay no matter what. Um, but the risk reward of not, or excuse me, the risk of not having this type of intelligence is massive, especially at a large scale.
Yeah.
Like I'd even go as far as to say like your fiduciary responsibility should be to evaluate it to know it. And by the way, do people try to build this type of software internally?
Oh, yeah, all the time. That's our biggest competitor is people thinking they can kind of build it internally. And everybody can. I mean,
That's what I was thinking about.
yeah, everybody can build. Our largest competitor in this space openly is in-house software. But when you ask a Bitcoin miner, like if I went to a Pubco and I said, hey, what do you guys do? They're not going to say we're a software shop. They're going to say, I'm a Bitcoin miner.
Yeah.
So then, well, what do you ask? If you ask us, what are we? Well, we're software devs. So it kind of comes down to where are you going to do, where's your best investment of time? Building out more sites and becoming a larger Bitcoin miner, or should you be writing software? So we have devs writing software 24/7 all day long, and we're pretty actually cost effective too. To give you an idea, we had one customer, 30,000 miners during a bull market. Keep this in mind. 30,000 miners rolled in on Foreman. The way a lot of sites work is you have tech, you have operators. There's a shift change. Somebody uses BTC tools, which is probably the most common tool in every operator's toolbox. Very lightweight desktop app that you can open, scans the network and says, hey, here's my hash rates, here's what's offline, online, and all that. It's manual though. Every day, operators need to scan the entire network, scan in 30,000 miners, and figure out what are we going to do for the next 10 hours. Well, here's our list from our shift change. Here's what we're going to do for the next 10 hours, which means that for the next 10 hours, nobody's scanning.
Yeah.
And you're always at least 10 to 12 hours behind. So we had one customer roll in, thought they had great operations, turned Foreman on. We didn't have any automation on yet. Just turn it on, let you see what you got. Here's what here's all your miners on the network. Here's what's missing hash boards. All this turned on automation, and we made them about 80 grand more that month. And their Foreman bill is maybe $2K. So they're making 80 grand that month by just using Foreman.
You got to bottle up. That was literally my next question was around case studies and client success stories. Like you just scan Twitter, by the way, because you'll see people pop up and just say Foreman this or Foreman that. What you can share publicly besides that great story, by the way. Are there any other stories that like from the 1 bar mining in the garage to or the shed, excuse me, to the where you are now?
Yeah, it's there's been a lot of success stories. It's here's a different take on one actually. We just started have this new relationship with a publicly traded company. Had in-house software, but generally the in-house software is usually developed by a guy or two. And when you're a large-scale miner and you start really growing and you get to 10, 20, 30,000, you need more. And usually the software guys are the last people you think about. It's really more, how do we get more ops? How do we get more guys to build the tanks? How do we get more miners racked and stacked? So
Because the largest expenditure truly is still buying miners.
yeah, exactly. You're buying miners, you're buying sites, and
Yep.
you're building it out.
Yeah.
Nobody's really thinking, well, we add 2 sites, we got to add 2 devs, and we actually went to this site and they were just starting to roll Foreman out, and the dev on the side kind of pulls me aside. He's like, "Man, I'm so glad, I'm so glad that Foreman's here because it's too much for me and a guy." So it's different success story there. I like to think that maybe improved his quality of life because he seemed very stressed without having to build the software himself.
So let me ask you this. How do you guys handle data security and privacy? Because look, your software has a lot of intelligence.
Yep. Yeah, so everything's fully end-to-end encrypted. We are cloud hosted, but everybody kind of wonders who's, what's the data look like? So we're a SOC 2 type 2 company. That means that we get audited continuously every year, all year, for data integrity, data privacy, data security, high availability, all that stuff. We're actually the only SOC 2 type 2 management software in the space. So everything we get audited year round, all year round about that. Everything's end-to-end encrypted. And we also have a SOC 2 report where we can actually share this with you and show you what our architecture looks like, how the data's stored, how it's encrypted, just to make sure, big Google can't see it while it's sitting up there in the cloud. Very openly too, we don't own any attribution. We don't own identity data. You own your data. The only thing that we actually try to maintain rights to is anonymized data, just because we use that data to try to build more Foreman features.
Mm-hmm.
So we like to be able to say, hey, saw 1,000 S19s come in. Looks like this flavor of it might behave a certain way. So we need to build automation to solve that. So some of that data feeds into the development of new data-based products. But at the end of the day, you own your data. Everything's fully encrypted on disk. Can share any report you want through any auditor we go through. If you ever wanted to see anything, Rod.
No, I'm good on that.
It's very dry. That's a good question we get though. We get asked a lot about data. We also get a lot of questions about control.
Mm-hmm.
So as management software, we're a cloud platform. So sometimes people wonder, does that mean that Foreman can change my hash rate? Can it just change pools on me? And
that's a good question. Can Foreman change pools on me?
So that's where in our so technically, yeah. But in our installation guide, we actually have a thing that we release called Guardrail. And that is a add-on, fully free, fully open source, that you can use to install at the site. And it's decoupled from the cloud. And it serves as a barrier around Foreman. So you can say, I'd like to have the web page for monitoring, but I'm never going to allow Foreman to ever do a pool change. And all that gets checked and enforced at the site. So we actually have no control over that. So we say right in our installation guide, if you want to, make sure nothing ever happens from the cloud, you install Guardrail at the site. Here's the guide how to do it, fully open source. Here's where everything, we actually enumerate lines of code. Here's where it's enforced. Here's where this is enforced. Here's where this is checked. So now you can run Foreman in a read-only mode. And even though you might be able to go to the cloud and say pool change, it's going to immediately fail and say rejected by Guardrail. So we try to make sure that our users feel confident that we have their integrity and the control of their site in their best interests. And if you want to make sure that we have barriers and we're in a box, you can easily put us in a box. And we're very open about how to do that.
So you mentioned open source because I actually think you're one of the few players in the mining space that a portion, or if not all your code is open source.
A good chunk of our stuff is open source. We keep the dashboard, the cloud dashboards closed source, but we've been our Pickaxe, our agent. There's a lot of open source there. A lot of our stuff's very fully open source. GitHub.com/Foreman Mining. So you're
Why
welcome.
did you decide to go that route?
It's I love the open source community, and realistically, a lot of Foreman was built on, finding other snippets on how people figure out how to talk to a certain miner, and it's good to give back. So, our Windows agent, which is the auto upgrader to Foreman, fully open source. We've got a whole bunch of different flavors of pickaxe that are open source, which is our agent how to talk to miners. There's a ton of open source up.
That's awesome.
It's good to give back. Yeah.
Heck yeah, it is good to give
Strength
back.
through the community too. So by showing your hand, some people are able to go through and say, hey, I found something. Maybe you want to fix that. So now we have, the industry's security experts looking at our stuff saying, hey, I found something.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about the team. How big have you guys gotten now, and what's everyone doing?
We're up to 11 now.
Oh, that's cool.
It's been...
I think when we first chatted,
we were two.
It was you and Jake.
It was me and Jake. Yeah.
And we were just talking through some business ideas, just spitballing and brainstorming for a bit in the early days.
Yeah.
And now up to 11. That's awesome. Tell me about that.
It's been fun. And I'm gonna be honest, most of our scaling out came during the bear market.
That's awesome.
So it was Jake and I for a very, very long time. Both still had full-time jobs running Foreman.
I remember.
Yep. And, you go to work for 8 hours and then you come home for 16 hours and you're trying to build all night. And we didn't realize that we were choking the business. We thought we were just keeping up is all we were doing. And we were not really keeping up. We were always maybe 20% behind. That compounds. You're just always behind at that point. So eventually made the leap. Still 2 people professionally for a very long time. We closed a funding round with NIDIG. Was it May or June of this past 2022? Somehow perfect timing on that. Bitcoin was still 50, 60K. So I'm very thankful that we somehow strategically closed at the top. And now we're building like crazy during the bear market. So we've hired a ton of people within the last 6 months or so, and we're still hiring. We're probably going to hit at least 16, I imagine, in the very near future.
So NIDIG's your largest shareholder?
No, still Jake and I as co-founders.
Okay, got it. But that's a cool strategic investment that
Yeah.
NIDIG on their end, because they have a whole mining operations dedicated team and so on, which is awesome. So the team growing it out. By the way, there's so many dang cool things. If you're a miner, even an at-home miner, take Dan up on his free offer of just going and playing around with Foreman and putting it on your home garage S9 or your small fleet of miners. It's so dang fun. Don't pummel them on the Discord and ask them customer service questions and so on.
Go to Rod first.
Or go to me or go to ChatGPT-3 first. But besides that, so what's next that you guys are, concocting in the garage?
Yeah, so we are not public about a lot of the we build very quick, and this is one of our faults. We build very quick, we market very slow.
Yeah.
So we've been automating curtailment for a while now, and that I don't know if many people know that outside of just the users that were like, hey, Foreman, I have a need for this. Well, we actually already do that. Here, just turn this lever and pull this knob.
I didn't know that until this conversation.
Exactly. So maybe this will be an educational thing. So the stuff that we've built recently that's kind of rolled out is auto curtailment for demand response. We can do a lot of that stuff in ERCOT in Texas as well. Some of the very aggressive programs, some of the even more day ahead programs. Stuff that we're rolling out more recently is playing around with the economic side of mining. So there's two reasons generally why a mine might go off. It could be just talking about demand response and electricity rates. Demand response could be an event, grid stress, time to turn the mine off. Or it you might be in a deregulated market and you might be buying power real time or in a day ahead market. And now it's not economical to mine. During this Texas storm that just hit, within the last couple of weeks, price per megawatt hour generally maybe around $20 per megawatt hour, 30, 40, 50, took off to $4,000 per megawatt hour.
What, Tom?
$4,000 per megawatt hour. So if you actually mined flat through the month at a 10 meg site, you'd be in the hole about 20 grand if you mine the whole way through, paying through the peaks and everything.
That's when you're just sending a truck through your mining site and just pummeling it.
But if you actually used Foreman, one of our newer features for peak avoidance, where we watch electricity rates, turn you off, turn you on, you actually would have came out 80K ahead. So that's the stuff that we're starting to market now. So we very well automate demand response. We also now very well automate the kind of dynamic markets, those deregulated markets where you're buying power and you're saying, whoa, $4,000 a megawatt hour, time to turn off. Or negative $80 a megawatt hour, time to power up the S9s. So that's the economics side we're really getting into.
Now, for shits and giggles, you mentioned you can see manufacturers, you can see type of miners, and so on. You have any cool internal dashboards where, like, oh, wow, we just saw an uptick in S19 XPs actually come online? Or, hey, can you guys get down to the chip level too, or no?
We can get frequency voltage down to the chip. If you're running stock, they don't give you too much. If you're running kind of the miner the way it is right out of the box, they don't give you too much. I would say Bitmain, we'll just say Bitmain as an example, they build pretty good hardware, not great software.
Yep.
So the firmware is the part that we integrate with, the software on the hardware, and they don't give us a lot of insight. But interesting insights that we do see are, hey, there's people are buying 104Ts. Well, I can tell you from our side, we see some that are 104Ts. We see some that are 106s that are just running, that they're selling as 104Ts. We can also see when somebody sends a miner out, they might come, we get this a lot recently, actually. Somebody sends a miner out for repair, and it was maybe 104T. It comes back from repair, and Foreman autocorrects the type to a 100T. And they're like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm looking at the sticker on the front of the box, and it says it's a 104T. Foreman's wrong. Well, it's saying it's on 100, and if you look at it, it's running it on 100. So what you got back might not be the same thing you sent out. So that's some funk that we see lately.
And so, are they scanning barcodes just to double check on the actual?
There's a nameplate hash rate on the front of it, so you can see what it is, but just the shell. It's kind of like, it's kind of like dropping your, I don't know what kind of car you have, dropping your
piece of shit.
Yeah, your Daewoo off at the
Mercedes-Benz dealership.
And it's like dropping off your car, and then you get it back, but it's just the same shell. But the internals, you're really driving maybe RAV4 or something out under the hood. So that's what's happening. You send something out, you get the same shell, and then people kind of come to us like, Foreman's got a bug. You just didn't get
How
the same
often
thing.
does that happen?
Harder to track at scale, I would say. We're seeing it right now more of a like user reports a bug with Foreman. We dig into it and it's like, wait a second, I just wanted to let you know. We're reporting it as it says it is.
Yeah. You're just truly agnostic in that, and that's
exactly
way. You have no like skin in the game to say this is a 100 or 104 or 106.
Exactly, yeah. So, but what we do see, sometimes they put a whole bunch of different models that perform a certain way into a certain bucket. So there's 104s. There's actually some drift on the hash rate. You'll see 104s. You'll see 106s. We'll see sometimes miners appear advertising different hash rates that they aren't even marketing yet. Like maybe like a 92 or an 84 or something pops up. And we're like, well, I guess we'll add it. And then eventually you'll see that Bitmain's selling an 84 and 84s are hitting the market. So it's neat to kind of see little stuff like that.
Have you been seeing a lot of XPs come online?
We've seen XPs come online, yeah.
A lot?
They're getting there, yeah.
Dang, okay.
Dang, is that bad?
No, it's funny because as a miner, you
don't want hash rate to grow.
You don't want, you want price to go up, hash rate to go up less, but still go up.
It's like, that's it.
It's a weird game. The game theory is all messed up at any given time. I always joke, and I've said this a million times on this pod and on Pod 256, the Bitcoin mining weekly show. It's like there's 4 quadrants. 3 of them are good, and there's one baddie quadrant. The baddie quadrant is when total exahash is going up and the price of Bitcoin is going down.
Yeah.
Everything else you can kind of, if you have good unit economics, good discipline, good contracts, and now I would say to kudos to Foreman, good intelligence and insight into your operation, You can weather these storms, no pun intended.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of our users are still here. They're still mining. They're still building and scaling. I'm very bullish on hash rate, even though Bitcoin, market prices are, maybe we've gone up a little bit. It looks like maybe we're up to 17. We're at 16.
Rich.
I see things, these builds that people are building right now. A lot of stuff in West Texas, a lot of stuff in Texas, stuff in PJM, all kinds of stuff. People are building mega sites still. And this is the time when people are making these orders for miners that we're not going to see or feel the hash rate for 6 months, but things are so cheap now.
Yeah.
So now is when you buy, now is when you build, and you see hash rate take off later.
So I agree 95% of that. I think there's going to be a lot of replacement investment as well. So like you mentioned a lot of the S9s. I'm actually curious, like I don't know if this is you're able to share publicly, but I think there was a stat like 25% of the total exahash are running S9s. It's probably less than that now. It's probably like 20%. I don't know what percent of the Foreman fleet you're seeing is still running S9s.
We're mostly S19s and the equivalent.
The reason why I say that is because I think there's a lot of miners and even bigger mining operations that may be off-grid that were running S9s, and now it's cost efficient to go and upgrade into the M30S++ or the S19Js or the J Pros and so on.
A lot of hash rates getting a lot of machines are getting bought and sold right now. So very bullish on hash rate.
Oh, very bullish on hash rate. All right, buddy.
Bullish on market prices too. More bullish. There you go. Just to make sure we're, market prices are going up higher than hash rate.
Good
just for
deal.
you, Rod.
I learn so much every time we chat, and I'm so appreciative of not only our chats, our friendship, and a number of other things. So Dan, I can't thank you enough for being on this pod. Can't thank you enough. I'm going to moderate the panel that you're on. And I picked you to be on my panel. So that's really selfish of me again. So I got to have another hour of uninterrupted time with you. We're going to do an on-grid versus off-grid panel topic.
Party time.
Where do you want folks to find you, or we can do a quick lead off?
Anybody can hit me up on Telegram. I'm very open. I'll chat with anybody, any small scale, large scale, anybody at Foreman_Dan. Dan at OBM.mn. OBM again. MN, not Mongolia or Minnesota, Baltimore. Very open. Any DMs are open, Twitter, anything. You can hit me up.
What's your Twitter?
At Foreman Mining.
Okay.
That's basically my personal Twitter.
Nice.
It's anybody can message me about anything. Happy to chat. If you're interested in demand response, got a ton of stuff we can do there. If you're interested in trying to find ways to keep your mine profitable through volatile electricity prices, if you're trying to find ways to automate your operators to keep your mine up and hashing when somebody's not watching the screen, reach out. Happy to show you what we can do.
Love it, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I'm already looking forward to the next conversation, buddy.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Rod.
Hey, everyone. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dan as much as I did. Foreman's Mining software is a serious solution for mining operations of all sizes, interested in maximizing efficiency and profitability. If you're enjoying the pod and want to automatically stay up to date, please like and subscribe in your favorite podcasting app, and make sure auto download is on. This would also mean the world to me. Lastly, come visit us in Nashville at Bitcoin Park. Go to bitcoinpark.co and see all the ways to connect with us and stay up to date. Until next time.